There's a lot of stuff in this world that can qualify as food, and in my pursuit to understand and break down all of them, there are bound to be some that I misjudged. Those are exactly what we're here for today, the foods that either have more good or less bad than I first assumed. I'm hoping to make it clear that I'm nothing if not amendable should a sufficient argument be made. Challenging preconceived notions and bad first impressions is a blessing both when it comes to people and nutrition. So these are 10 foods that are better than I first thought. And we're going to kick this little list off with the one that might make me have to change the thumbnail, the eggplant, or the aubergine for my friends across the pond. It's technically a fruit, in fact, botanically it's a berry, but calorically and culinarily it's more of a vegetable. And in my vegetable tier list, I originally ranked eggplant rather low because its content of actual essential nutrients, macros, vitamins, minerals, is quite lacking when compared to other fruits and vegetables. What I failed to communicate was just how special its main selling point is, that being nosinin. This is a more unique type of anthocyanin compound, and eggplants are straight up the richest source of them. It's a potent type of antioxidant that, like all antioxidants, protects against cell damage caused by free radicals. What makes nosinin special is that it seems to be particularly effective at protecting lipids in cell membranes, specifically those in the brain. It also assists in transporting nutrients and waste to and from the brain, supporting its function, improving memory, and preventing cognitive decline. And like many fruits and vegetables, they need to be cooked to be most appetizing, but unlike many others where cooking can damage and lower the amount of their main nutrients, the nosinin in eggplant actually gets more bioavailable when cooked. A prime example of how a food can have value beyond the obvious. Another fruit I undervalue that has two very common names for some reason is the dragon fruit or the pitaya, but that sounds kinda lame compared to dragon fruit. Anyways, it's another with an unimpressive nutritional profile when you just look at the numbers, other than arguably its fiber, which is pretty decent per calorie, and a significant portion of it is actually soluble, which promotes gut health by feeding beneficial intestinal bacteria. Dragon fruit also contains an elusive type of compound, that being betalains, which are most associated with beetroot and are partially responsible for its anti-inflammatory and improvement of blood flow benefits. Unfortunately, the amount when compared to beetroot is pretty pathetic, less than 5%, but this is a high standard to try to match. And when combined with dragon fruit's many anthocyanins like the cyanidin and delphinidin that makes blackberries and blueberries stand out, and the pelargonidin that makes strawberries and raspberries great, this becomes a fruit that deserves a bit more respect than I initially gave it. Plus, taste-wise, they're sweet and unique, and I would recommend them on that alone. Next is a more controversial and probably not even necessary to clarify choice, but I'm gonna do it anyways. Diet soda is probably better than regular soda. The snag is that they mainly use artificial sweeteners such as aspartame, sucralose, and saccharin. Since my drinks tier list, I've had the chance to look into these a bit more and find some aspects of them far less hazardous than then. The links to cancer, heart disease, and diabetes are all weaker than I previously saw, though the general consensus seems to be that the research is trying really hard not to find a general consensus. The question remains, is it better than regular sugary soda? Well, it doesn't seem to be noticeably harmful for the liver in reasonable amounts, though it does have negative effects on your teeth and gut microbiome. And to really hone in on what we do know, it avoids simple sugars, which is bad past a certain very easy to pass point for so many reasons. And diet soda is entirely non-nutritious, but technically so is water, so what can I say? Psychologically, no, choosing them to satiate your sugary soda addiction is not actually making any progress. But practically, yes, it is better if you've just gotta have your one sweet bubbly drink a day. Overall, diet soda is healthier than regular soda, mainly for being less damaging. Though I gotta say, that is not a high bar to clear. Now back to real food, one that I did previously praise, just not enough, pecans. A nutritious nut that doesn't get enough credit. And the main nutrient I undervalued was its monounsaturated fat. Pecans are one of the fuller nut sources of it, and I've been appreciating it and defending it more and more as time goes on. Their benefits are involving cholesterol, inflammation, and blood sugar with virtually no drawbacks in practice. And pecans are rich in several other often tougher to find nutrients, including magnesium, potassium, and especially zinc, as well as copper and several B vitamins. And they're one of the richest sources of gamma tocopherol, a form of vitamin E that is heart and neuroprotective. It feels like every time I talk about nuts, it devolves into a laundry list of nutrients that puts most foods to shame. And while in the past I may have made it seem like pecans are a step below other popular nuts, I wanted to rectify that by making it clear that they are right in the mix of things. Finally, we have a food that I actually ranked properly the first time around, but only because I already had corrected my previous opinions on it. The forgotten middle child of fish, trout. Already a fairly popular choice, rainbow trout is the perfect midpoint between the well-respected salmon and tuna. It's definitely a fatty fish, just not quite as fatty as the omega-3 premier salmon and sardines. And it's definitely protein dense, just not as high as tuna or many lean white fish. But it's such a great middle ground, and coupled with its high vitamin D and low mercury, it is a worthy choice. And they're also not exotic or super overpriced. You can find its meat at prices comparable to the beloved salmon and tuna. I mainly just never hear people mention it when talking seafood, but it definitely deserves to be part of the discussion. Sometimes even foods that I know will be great surprise me with just how great they are. Like the most underrated organ meat by far, that being heart meat. I always hear the conversation about liver and kidney and brain, and for good reason, but heart actually might be the healthiest organ meat, albeit far from the most nutrient dense. Still, it's above average nutritionally. Heart meat is lean, full of protein, and full of all the components you would expect from meat. Vitamin B12, iron, zinc, selenium, phosphorus, and choline. It's especially rich in the taurine amino acid, which has antioxidant properties and is shown to improve cognitive function. Though its real unique seller is coenzyme Q10, a vitamin-like compound that helps with ATP production and fittingly supports heart health. Heart is also one of the milder tasting organ meats, making it a great introductory choice into the food group. And perhaps the best part is that it's very cheap compared to most meats, often at about the same price as chicken breast. A criminally underrated choice. I hope there's a push for the inclusion of more organ meats in the average diet, and I think heart meat is the best suited to lead the charge. I'm not afraid to say that I've had some biases before getting to know things better. Some foods that I genuinely hope suck because I don't really like how they taste. But the truth always comes out eventually. Snail or escargot is remarkably unique. First off, it's pretty lean, so it's surprisingly protein dense per calorie. But of its limited fat, much of it is often DHA and EPA omega-3, often much more than many fish. And I would hope that if you've watched this channel for any length of time, you know just how crucial these are. But the unique qualities keep coming because snail is one of the best animal sources of vitamin E, a necessary preserver of your immune system, skin, hair, and many other things. And magnesium, a commonly deficient mineral necessary to preserve nerve and muscle health. I know escargot isn't the most popular or accessible food in parts of the world, but for the purposes of this video, it definitely counts. Just make sure you cook them before you eat them to avoid all kinds of health concerns. This next one got me scolded in a previous video because it turns out that gelatin doesn't have to be loaded with sugar. Now, even at its worst, it's still far less caloric and sugary than most sweets. And at its best, it's just lightly flavored collagen and water. Collagen is just a type of protein, the most abundant protein in the human body. It's not a complete protein, but that's okay because I don't think you're going to be relying on gelatin as a protein source. Though getting some extra collagen through your diet definitely doesn't hurt, and the collagen in gelatin is enough to somewhat make a difference in the health of the body parts made up of collagen, skin, hair, and joints, for example. Some studies even go as far as to say that gelatin can improve brain function and mental health. That being said, beyond collagen, it does not inherently contain any other nutrients. And at least here in the US, you have to search a bit to find gelatin that isn't basically just jiggly sugar. But it can be done, and that makes it better than I thought. A low bar to be sure, but it counts. Next up, a dairy duo that I previously excluded because I didn't think they were anything special, that being Skyr and Quark. Skyr is a thick, creamy Icelandic food somewhere between a cheese and a yogurt, while Quark is a fresh, soft German cheese similar in texture to cream cheese. Both are low-calorie due to being low in both fat and carbs, and they are both often more protein-dense than Greek yogurt, an already premier dairy product. They'll give you everything you can expect from dairy: calcium, phosphorus, vitamin B12, vitamin B2, and even some vitamin K2. This is because both are fermented with live cultures, giving them a probiotic effect, improving gut health by feeding beneficial intestinal bacteria. The main drawback is that they're usually more expensive than Greek yogurt, assuming you even have access to them in the first place. But if you do, they are a couple of top-tier dairy foods that I wish I gave more attention to earlier. And last in this video, another duo, this time the herbs mint and rosemary, a pair I previously disregarded because they're not quite as potent or proven as other herbs and spices. That being said, they can have their own roles, particularly for cognitive function. Rosemary is shown to help improve memory, the hybrid peppermint is shown to help with focus, and spearmint is said to have a calming effect. And all three are shown to help with IBS, indigestion, and sleep, as well as having antimicrobial benefits. Plus, unlike many other herbs and spices, these are super easy to use in many recipes or just nothing but tea. Now, I'll admit, it's hard to quantify the effectiveness of herbs, but in hindsight, I do believe mint and rosemary are better than I thought. Challenging preconceived notions is not only useful and engaging, but it's also a healthy skill to be able to do. With any topic that has any complexity, you're going to misjudge some aspects of it at first, and that's okay. And if you did that with your food or nutrition, this is your sign to maybe go back and give them another chance. Now, if you enjoyed this video, or at the very least learned a little something, I encourage you to subscribe as I have plenty more of these on the way. I also encourage you to share it with someone who you think might find it useful or interesting. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments what other topics you think would fit this 10 foods format. And remember that all I ask is that you do your own research and advocate for your body. You only get the one.